Let's finish it.
From a professional level is like, why do you think MLB guys are struggling with coming back into the game on the youth baseball side? Because this is what's impressive about you is that you could be, we talked about this off camera, is that you could be pissed off at the world about baseball because you're still not in the big leagues, right? Or you can flip the script and then you're giving back to the game. Because I rarely see big league guys in coaching, even at the youth and even high school level. They're either doing it from a distance because they want to give back to the game, but they're still dealing with some stuff that they don't want to get back into it. But there's just a select group of guys that do that. Why do you think that is?
So I think it does depend on how high of a caliber that big league player was. There is a lot that goes into. I think players do get very bitter at the end of their careers, whether it's fans or whatever it could be. I mean, some of these guys. I came through the minor leagues with Chris Bryant. We played in the big leagues together, and like this guy can't go to Starbucks without being stopped for 2 hours.
True.
So I think sometimes what happens, these guys are like, if I go coach youth baseball, I won't I literally am going to be in the spotlight again. And now that I'm done, I don't want to be in the spotlight because you're going to have parents constantly going up to him. Can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph?
So they
Things
get
like
burnt
that.
out on it.
So I think they get a little burnt out of constantly having to be in the light. And I think that's maybe easier with kids. But when the adults get involved, then it gets annoying. I think for those players, I think the other thing is some of these guys. It's because it does become very much a business that they're maybe scared to lead these kids into this business. I think people don't realize how much of a business it becomes, and you do somewhat become cattle, where you're just you're stock, and they're just trading you, selling you as they please.
Yeah,
and I think that's something you just have to accept. That doesn't mean it's necessarily the best way to handle things, but I think you have to accept it. And so I think with major league players coming back, it's partly that. It kind of goes back to something we said earlier that I would never know you play in the big leagues, and I love that because I can go to Smoothie King, I can go to Starbucks. I might occasionally randomly be like, "Hey, are you so and so?" But it's very seldom, especially the further away I am from playing. So
you love that. You love that.
I love that no one knows who the heck I am. That they have to maybe find out from a bio or someone. Oh, what have you done in your career as a worker or whatever? Like, oh, how long you been doing this job? Oh, 8 months. What'd you do before? Oh, I played Major League Baseball.
Do you love saying that? Like, it's like that. It's like
Trump card.
Yeah, it's funny. I do. I enjoy it. It's not that I'm trying to brag about it by any means, but I think it's.
But it ends up, it's like when you say it, like I can only imagine. Yeah. Because I had a brief little moment there, nothing like yours. Like me saying big league, that'd be crazy. But this guy was like, "Oh, I'm really into baseball." I was like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "I played high school. I actually was on the all-state team." I was like, "Oh, that's great." He's like, "Did you play?" And I was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have asked that." Yeah, I played at Missouri State and played a little bit of professional baseball. And he's like, "Man, that really makes me feel bad." I'm like, "No, that's not what I wanted to do."
Yeah, by no means. But it's such a small group of people who even just go play college. I mean, it's like 7% of high school players go on to play college at any level. 1% of that go and play professional ball. Even smaller percent of that make it to the big leagues. Yeah. So I think like if you were to look it up, I'm like number 18,100 whatever. That was in 2014. So I mean, we're only here 6-7 years later. That number's still probably under 20,000. Like if you think about it, that doesn't fill half of Busch Stadium of all the big leaguers ever. So I mean, it is a cool thing to say, and I think it's something people should be proud of if they can do it. And I enjoy it because my next thing is, you thought I'd be a little bigger, huh?
Yeah.
And so I love actually teaching small kids that are good. That small 11-year-old you're like, that's a good player. Yeah. And I'm like, just wait. You'll grow. Keep working hard. Like, don't get down. And so you open up this whole other chain to all the little kids who are like, they're not 6 feet at 12 years old. They're not 5'8" at 12 years old. They're 4'11", who are really good ball players. And now they might have quit because they got sick of it. Or maybe they don't continue to develop because they're like, I'm not as good as these guys. Or maybe they're not on the top team because they're smaller. So now you open up this whole you can unlock a little more out of them because they're like, oh, like this little dude playing the big leagues? And then you go, I show them. I'll be like, hey, this is me hitting a home run in Fenway.
Yeah.
That's you? Yeah. I'm 5'8", man.
Yeah, you can do it too.
You can do it too. So it's really cool to sometimes, and even the small kids or the big kids, hey, you're tall at 12. Like we had the 14-year-old commit to Mizzou.
Yeah.
I said, walked up to him, hardly met him, maybe once or twice, said, congratulations, that's awesome. Doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
Because if you get complacent and stop working, that little dude on your team who's really talented, he's going to outplay you. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, you're a senior out of the game, and he's the one taking your spot. So then you can unlock a little more out of them. They're like, oh, like, yeah, that is a big deal. But you know what? I still have 5 more years to play before I go to college.
Right.
So, like, I like using that aspect at times with parents to maybe unlock a little more out of kids just from a mental side.
I also think a lot of people don't understand, like, the purity of the game is really at that youth level.
It is.
That's where...
To see more short clips of the closing pitch, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also subscribe to Apple Podcasts and follow on Spotify to get notified on future episodes.